I'll continue from here. Different
Sir,
types. Huh?
sir,
Yes.
sir, 7 ಜನ ಸರ್ ಮ್ಯಾಥ್ಸ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಇದೆ ಸರ್ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ. ಸೊ ಹಂಗಾಗಿ ಅವ್ರ ಅಟೆಂಡ್.
Sorry, ಬಿಡಿ ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ.
ಓಕೆ ಸರ್, ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಸರ್.
Okay. So different types of elasticity of supply. Very similar to what you studied in case of demand. Perfectly inelastic supply. You can look at the figure here. Okay, the graph. Supply curve is perpendicular to quantity axis, or it is parallel to the price axis. Whatever may be the change in price, okay, whatever may be the change in price, the quantity supplied, it remains the same. Quantity supplied remains the same. So perfectly inelastic supply, there is no change in quantity supplied due to change in price. So change in quantity is zero. So the formula includes delta QS by delta P, that is price of supply. Okay, so delta Q by delta P, the numerator is zero. So zero by anything is zero. So EPS, the coefficient of price elasticity of supply, will be equal to zero. Perfectly inelastic supply. The second one is perfectly elastic supply. Okay, you can look at the graph here. The supply curve is parallel to the quantity axis, or it is perpendicular to the price axis. Whatever may be the change in quantity supplied, the price remains the same. The price doesn't change. So for an infinitesimally small change in price, you cannot even detect very small price, minute change in price. There is a large change in quantity supply. So delta Q by delta P. Delta Q, there is change, but the change in price, it is almost zero. Okay, change in price is almost zero. So anything by zero is infinity. So the coefficient of price elasticity of supply will be equal to infinity. So it is perfectly elastic supply. The third one is unitary elastic supply. Now, whatever I cover from this point onwards, the next 3 slides, I'll repeat again. That's why you carefully look at the graph here. Okay, unitary elastic supply, that means the coefficient is equal to 1, unitary. There is equal percentage change in price as well as quantity supplied. So percentage change in quantity is equal to percentage change in price. So delta QS by delta PS, so both are same, equal, 3 by 3 or 4 by 4 or whatever it is. So your coefficient is equal to 1. And if you look at the graph here, the supply curve is a straight line. It passes through the origin. Supply curve is a straight line. It passes through origin. The change in price, change in quantity supplied, the proportion is the same. Okay, unitary elastic supply. Then the fourth one is relatively inelastic supply. I'll repeat it one more slide. So carefully look at the graph as well as the explanation here. Relatively inelastic supply, the coefficient is less than 1. In the previous one, unitary elastic, it was equal to 1. So here it is less than 1, where percentage change in price is greater than percentage change in quantity supplied. So the change in price, compare it with change in quantity supplied. So percentage change in price is much higher than percentage change in quantity supplied. So in this, the numerator is smaller, the denominator is larger. So when you divide smaller denominator by a smaller numerator by a larger denominator, the coefficient will be less than 1. And what I want you to look at here is the supply curve. The supply curve is a straight line here, and it passes through the quantity axis. Okay, it passes through the quantity axis. The next one is relatively elastic supply, where the coefficient of price elasticity is greater than 1. Here, the percentage change in quantity supplied, the percentage change in quantity supplied is more than the percentage change in price. Okay, you can look at the graph here. The percentage change in price is smaller, but the percentage change in supply, quantity supplied is larger. So larger divided by smaller, larger divided by smaller. So naturally, the coefficient will be greater than 1. Okay, and please look at this graph here. The supply curve is a straight line, and it passes through the price line, or it touches the price line. If we extend it, it will pass through the price axis. Okay, so it is greater than 1. Now, I have brought all the three here. Okay, it is the general rule relating to the elasticity of supply, price elasticity of supply. So nature of supply curve and elasticity. If you remember, even while explaining the price elasticity of demand, we had come across this general rule. If you draw a demand curve, which is a straight line, negatively sloping, downward sloping, at the midpoint, elasticity is equal to 1. Any point above the midpoint, elasticity is greater than 1. Any point below the midpoint, elasticity is less than 1. That was the general rule in case of price elasticity of demand. But here, in case of supply curve and price elasticity of supply, okay, all along the supply curve, EP is EPS, that is coefficient of price elasticity of supply, is greater than 1 when the supply curve is a positively sloped straight line and it crosses the price axis. In the previous slide, we have seen this. Okay, all along the supply curve, EP is less than 1 when the supply curve is a positively sloped straight line and it crosses the quantity axis. And all along the supply curve, EPS is equal to 1 when the supply curve is a positively sloped straight line and it passes through the origin. If the supply curve is straight line, passes through the origin, then your price elasticity is unitary, that is equal to 1. So if you draw all types of supply curves in one graph, okay, EPS is equal to 1. The supply curve is straight line, it passes through the origin. Okay, supply curve is coefficient, price elasticity is greater than 1 if it is straight line and it passes through the price axis. Less than 1 if it passes through the quantity axis. If it is perpendicular to quantity axis, EP is equal to 0. If it is perpendicular to price axis, the coefficient of price elasticity is infinity. And if it is negatively sloping, all along we discussed about only positively sloping. Straight line, straight line, straight line, straight line, straight line, all positively sloping. But here, this supply curve is negatively sloping, so the price elasticity is less than 0. But this is very rare, so we don't come across this. But theoretically, yes, if it is negatively sloping, then EPS is less than 0. Okay. So with this, I complete the supply curve or the elasticity, both price elasticity, elasticity of demand, elasticity of supply. Okay, now I want to join the loose ends and complete it. So I'll take up this one. I think I have covered this before the lockdown and the closure of the college. Oh, I didn't. Okay. Let me share this. It is here. I'll not go for the slideshow. I'll just show here. Do you remember I have covered this before the lockdown? I think this was the last class that I had engaged before the closure of the college. I ಹೇಳೋದು ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ?
Yes, sir. ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಿದೆ sir.
Okay. So consumers equilibrium when the marginal utility is equal to price of that commodity. ಹೇಳಿದ್ ನೆನಪಿದೆಯಾ? Marginal utility, when it becomes equal to the price, the consumer will be in equilibrium. What it says is marginal utility is what I get. Okay, marginal utility is what I get. That's satisfaction. Okay, what I get is marginal utility when I consume something. When I have to consume, I have to purchase. Suppose I want to consume 1 cup of coffee, I have to purchase 1 cup of coffee, right? So when I consume 1 cup, I get that satisfaction, that additional satisfaction, that is marginal utility. Okay, when the marginal utility, the satisfaction I get, additional satisfaction I get, is equal to the price of 1 cup of coffee. What is that price? When I pay the price, I lose the satisfaction. ನಾನು ದುಡ್ಡು ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ ನನ್ನ ಹತ್ರ ದುಡ್ಡು ಇದ್ದದ್ದು ಕಳ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀನಲ್ಲ, ಆ ಸ್ಯಾಟಿಸ್ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಹೊರಟೋಗುತ್ತೆ. When I pay money, the money I had, I'll be losing. So that is dissatisfaction. I lose the satisfaction. So when what I get, the satisfaction, and what I lose, the satisfaction, when the two are equal, the consumer will be in equilibrium. So marginal utility is equal to price, the consumer will be in equilibrium. Okay, suppose if the price of a good increases, okay, if the price of a good increases, why the consumers buy less? Why do they purchase less? Very simple. Always price and marginal utility must be equal. Okay, so it is the tendency of any consumer, always the consumers want to be in equilibrium. So for them to be in equilibrium, price must be equal to marginal utility. Price is what that prevails in the market. And individual consumers, I cannot go to the market and change the price. Price is not in my hand. I cannot change the price. So I cannot touch change. But I can change the marginal utility. By consuming less or consuming more, I can change the marginal utility. So when price is equal to marginal utility, okay, when the price is not equal to marginal utility, we always try to bring that equality. We always want to be in equilibrium. So how can we bring or make price equal to marginal utility? Price is not in our hand. I repeat, marginal utility is in our hand. We can change it. Now, price is greater, marginal utility is smaller. Okay, so what if we want to make them equal, what we have to do? We have to increase the marginal utility because price is greater now. We have to increase the marginal utility and make them equal. So how can we increase the marginal utility? And you know the law of diminishing marginal utility. As you go on consuming more and more units of the same commodity, the additional satisfaction you get goes on decreasing. When you consume more, to consume more, you have to purchase more. When you purchase more, the marginal utility decreases. But to increase marginal utility, what you have to do? Purchase less, consume less. That's why when the price increases, consumers buy less. Marginal utility increases. So this process goes on until the marginal utility becomes equal to price. Okay. Now, on the other hand, if the price of a good decreases, the consumers buy more. Why? See here, price is less, marginal utility is greater. But for the consumer to be in equilibrium, price must be equal to marginal utility. I repeat, price is not in our hand. We cannot change the price. It is given for us, but we can change the marginal utility. So now, since the marginal utility is greater, we have to bring down marginal utility. We have to decrease marginal utility till the price and marginal utility become equal. So to bring down marginal utility, what we should do? The law of diminishing marginal utility says, when you consume more, you get less marginal utility, additional satisfaction. That's why the consumers buy more when the price decreases, and then when you purchase more, the marginal utility decreases and the two become equal. Is it clear? Is it clear? No response?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Now, derivation of the demand curve from law of diminishing marginal utility. We say the demand curve is drawn from the marginal utility curve. Okay. How it is possible? Law of diminishing marginal utility, it says marginal utility of a good decreases as the quantity consumed increases. You all know that. It means marginal utility curve of a good is a downward sloping curve. MU curve is downward sloping because when you consume more, the additional satisfaction decreases. Okay. A consumer is in equilibrium when the marginal utility of a good equals its price. Now, when the price is OR, suppose you take this point. On the y-axis here, we have the price. Okay. So OR is the price. And it also indicates the marginal utility. So this is the marginal utility curve, and MP or PM is the marginal utility. I repeat, RO is the price, PM is the marginal utility. So at this price and quantity, when the price is R and quantity is M, OP is equal to PM. Sorry, OR or RO is equal to PM. The two are equal. The consumer is in equilibrium. Suppose the price is R1 and the quantity purchased is M1. R1O or OR1 is equal to M1 P1. So P1 M1 and R1O or OR1, they're equal. The consumer is in equilibrium. Now, in the next slide, we'll see what happens when the price changes. Okay, is it clearly visible, or should I go for slideshow? I'll try this slide.
Sir, it is visible, sir. It is visible, sir.
Visible. Okay. Now, when the price falls from OR to OR1, I'll try this. I'll take up everything here together. Sorry. Okay. Because it is not coming. Okay. When the price falls from OR to OR1, OR to OR1, the price has decreased from R to R1. What happens? Your marginal utility is PM. Your price is R1O. Okay. PM, that is the marginal utility, is greater than OR1, that is the price. So consumer always want to be in equilibrium. To achieve MU is equal to P, MU should reduce from PM to PM. What I explained earlier verbally is shown here in graph. Okay. Now, to make both equal, what he should do is from PM, he should move to R1 M1. Okay. R1 M1. That means from OM, he moves to OM1. That is, he purchases more. Okay. The consumer purchases more. Earlier, when the price was OR, he was purchasing OM quantity of the commodity, and he was getting PM utils of satisfaction. Then the price and the satisfaction marginal utility were equal. But now, when the price comes down, he purchases more quantity. Price comes down, he purchases more quantity. The marginal utility and the price become equal, but he'll be purchasing more. Is it clear? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So he purchases more, less means what? This is the demand curve. Okay, this is the demand curve. Earlier, we treated it as the marginal utility curve. So LDMU leads to downward sloping demand curve and the law of demand. Okay, this is the demand curve. So marginal utility curve can also be represented as the demand curve of an individual consumer. I repeat, the marginal utility curve can be treated as the demand curve of an individual consumer. Okay, so this is about utility. If you are clear, I'll stop this PPT at this point and I'll go to the final PPT. Shall I go to the next one?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, sharing. This one. Okay. While giving the animation, there was a, okay. Utility analysis. We talked about utility a couple of minutes ago. Now we'll take up. And in one of the classes, we had also seen the utility analysis can be done using either cardinal approach or ordinal approach. And we had also seen that the main proponent of cardinal analysis was Alfred Marshall. And ordinal approach, it was Hicks and Allen. Okay, so a few slides on this aspect. So we'll take up the cardinal analysis. So it is popularly known as the law of equimarginal utility, or other names of law of equimarginal utility is law of substitution. Okay, law of substitution. For one, we take the other. Okay, law of substitution, law of maximum satisfaction. The main proponent of the cardinal analysis or law of equimarginal utility is Alfred Marshall. Okay, so Alfred Marshall advanced his famous principle of equimarginal utility to explain why a consumer buys more of a good when its price falls. In the previous exercise, when we talked about the consumer equilibrium price equal to M view, okay, we talked about only one commodity, one good, price of that commodity or that good. But a consumer will not be purchasing only one commodity. In a month, will be purchasing hundreds of commodities, okay, with the limited income we have. So to explain that, Alfred Marshall put forth this law of equimarginal utility or the cardinal analysis, cardinal approach. Okay. So definition of this law of equimarginal utility, what it says is the consumer with a limited money income will spend it on a number of goods in such a way that he derives equal utility from the last rupee spent. Okay, the consumer with a limited income will spend it on a number of goods in such a way that he derives equal utility from the last rupee spent. How do you find out utility from the last rupee spent? You divide the utility you get, the satisfaction you get by its price. Suppose you are purchasing, say one commodity is coffee, suppose, and the satisfaction you get is 50 utils. And the price you have to pay for a cup of coffee is 5 rupees, suppose. Okay, so what is the utility you get from the last rupee spent? 50 utils divided by 5 rupees. So 50 by 5 is how much? 10, right? So from every 1 rupee that's spent, or sorry, the 1 rupee, the last 1 rupee you spend on coffee gives you 10 utils of satisfaction. Suppose another one is pencils. Okay, the satisfaction you get is say 20 utils. Okay, the satisfaction you get is 20 utils and the price of a pencil is 2 rupees. Then what is the utility you get from the last rupee you spend on pencil? 20 utils divided by 2 rupees. 20 by 2 is 10. So from 1 rupee spent on pencil, you'll be getting 10 utils of satisfaction. From 1 rupee spent on coffee, you are getting 10 utils of satisfaction. Suppose the other one is, say, a book. Okay, you get maybe some notebook or something. Okay, and price of that notebook is say 6 rupees. 6 rupees, you get 60 utils of satisfaction. 60 by 6 is 10. So what he says is, from the last rupee spent on each commodity will be equal. So from coffee, 1 rupee spent, last 1 rupee spent, 10 utils. From pencil, last 1 rupee spent, 10 utils. From book, last 1 rupee spent, 10 utils. So from all the three, you get 10 utils, 10 utils, 10 utils from the last rupee spent on each good. Then the consumer will be in equilibrium. That's what he says, equimarginal utility. Consumer's equilibrium. Consumer has limited income. We are not richy rich. We have limited income. Okay. He wants to get maximum satisfaction. Whatever may be the limited income, each consumer wants maximum satisfaction. Point of maximum satisfaction is consumer's equilibrium. The point where the consumer gets the maximum satisfaction is his equilibrium. The basic assumption we make while explaining the equimarginal utility is consumer wants to get maximum satisfaction, so he will continue to allocate his limited income on several goods. He cannot live with only one commodity, one good. He has to purchase many goods and he has to allocate, he has to distribute his limited income on all those commodities till the marginal utilities of a rupee worth of purchase of all goods are equal. So the last rupee spent on each and every commodity would give him equal satisfaction. Okay. So this is how we explain it. The marginal utility from A, maybe this is coffee. Marginal utility from B, maybe this is pencil. Marginal utility from N, maybe this is book, divided by price of coffee, price of pencil, price of book. So when all of them are equal, the consumer is in equilibrium. So this is called the proportionality. The proportion of satisfaction derived from each commodity by spending the last rupee will be equal. That's why we call it as proportionality rule. Okay, where MU is the marginal utility, A to N is the commodities we have to consume, we have to purchase, and P is the price. Okay, subject to. This is possible if the expenditure, PA is the price of A and QA is the quantity of A. That is price of coffee, quantity of coffee. When you multiply the quantity by price, what you get is expenditure, nimma kharchu. Okay, when you multiply price with quantity, you get the expenditure. Expenditure on coffee, expenditure on pencil, expenditure on book. When you add them all up, it should be equal to Y or maybe less than Y, but it cannot exceed Y. It cannot be, expenditure cannot be more than your income. Otherwise, you don't get any satisfaction. If the expenditure is more than your income, there'll be dissatisfaction. Okay. Now, suppose there are only two products. This is to explain there are only two products, A and B. So marginal utility from A, marginal utility from B, and price subject to expenditure on the two commodities will be equal to income. Okay. Now, what we say is if MUA by PA is greater than MUB by PB, same thing we discussed earlier, price must be equal to marginal utility when you deal with only one commodity. When you are dealing with several commodities, it is MUA by PA is equal to MUB by PB. Okay. Now, if MUA by PA is greater, okay, so to make them equal, what should happen? Your numerator should become smaller. To make this small, numerator should become smaller because you cannot change the price. Price is not in your hands, so you have to decrease numerator. To decrease numerator, that is marginal utility, what you have to do is you have to purchase more of A. Purchase more of A, or purchase less of B. When you purchase less of B, right hand side becomes large. Right hand side becomes larger. The two will become equal. So it is the same the other way. If MUA is less than MUB, then you purchase less of A and more of B. So continue this until the two become equal. Continue purchasing more of one or less of the other until the two become equal. This is what your cardinal approach says. The marginal utility analysis says, or this is what Alfred Marshall proposed. Okay, is this clear? Is this?
Yes, sir.
That's it.
Okay, good. Now we take up the other one, the cardinal approach. Sorry, ordinal approach. The name that we had mentioned there, it has other names also. If you go back to your notes, you'll find that we have already discussed this indifference curve analysis. Okay, it was proposed by Hicks and Allen. What are indifference curves? Curves that show the various combinations of two commodities. Actually, we'll be dealing with several commodities, but to make the persons or you, the students, understand what happens, okay, how the principle unfolds, okay, we consider only two commodities. Okay, we consider only two commodities. Actually, there are several commodities. Curves that show the various combinations of two commodities which yield equal utility or satisfaction to the consumer. Here, we say we cannot measure the utility. Okay, ordinal approach says you cannot measure the utility, but Alfred Marshall said you can measure the utility, and the special name given to utility, okay, that unit of measurement was utils. And we had seen if you consume one banana, 10 utils, one more banana, 6 utils, and so on, you can measure it. But Hicks and Allen they say that it is not possible to measure. You can only indicate your preference. I like mangoes more than banana. So I purchase more of mangoes than banana. And this is how they explain it, okay? Curves that show the various combinations of two commodities which yield equal utility or equal satisfaction to the consumer. What it says is you move along the indifference curve. Any point on the indifference curve, it gives the same utility, the same satisfaction. Okay, so it is shown here. This is the indifference curve here. Okay, so whether you purchase, other thing is on both the axes, you are taking quantity of the two commodities. You're not indicating the price here. Okay, on the x-axis, we have the quantity of x. On the y-axis, we have the quantity of y. Y could be anything, coffee, tea, whatever it is. Or this may be house, your school fees, your school uniform, expenditure on school uniform, and so on. It could be anything. Okay, quantity of x and quantity of y. So whether you purchase so much of y and so much of x, or you purchase this much of y and this much of x, the level of satisfaction you get is the same. Any point you move, any point you choose on this indifference curve, the satisfaction is the same. Okay, that's why we call it as indifference curve. Indifferent means what? Without giving any preference. this combination or that combination. Whichever combination it can be, we are happy. That is indifference. Many times we say you have indifferent attitude. You don't care. Okay? You don't care another care. You don't, you have an indifferent attitude ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ಅಲ್ವಾ? So any combination of x and y which is on this curve gives the same satisfaction. That's why we call it as indifference curve. If it's clear to you, I'll move to the next slide. Okay, indifference curve. Okay, what are the characteristics of indifference curves? In one graph, you can draw several indifference curves. But what these curves represent is, I see one. Your satisfaction may be 100 utils. Sorry, you cannot say utils here. You cannot measure some number 100. Actually, in ordinal approach, we don't give any number, but what we say is this curve represents more satisfaction than IC1. Indifference curve 1, indifference curve 2. Indifference curve 2 gives more satisfaction than indifference curve 1. Indifference curve 3 gives more than IC2, and IC4 gives more satisfaction than IC3. So all points on the same indifference curve yield the same satisfaction to the consumer. This we have seen in the previous slide. A higher indifference curve shows a greater amount of satisfaction. So as you move away from the origin, as you move to a higher indifference curve, it gives greater amount of satisfaction, or it indicates greater satisfaction. And if you move towards the origin, the satisfaction level goes on decreasing. Okay, so a higher if indifference curve shows a greater amount of satisfaction and a lower one less satisfaction. Indifference curves are negatively sloped. That means you are substituting one for the other. If you purchase more of X, you have to purchase less of Y. You are substituting X for Y. So it is a negatively sloping curve. Indifference curves are convex to origin. Okay, the shape, you look at the shape, it is convex to origin, and indifference curves cannot intersect. They cannot, like this, they cannot touch each other. Okay, they cannot touch each other. They cannot cut each other. Why? Because IC1 indicates lower satisfaction, IC2 indicates higher satisfaction. If the two curves here, indifference curves, they touch each other, cut each other at the point of intersection, the point where the two meet, they have to be equal. It cannot be, because they represent different levels of satisfaction. Okay, so indifference curves cannot intersect. Are you clear? If you are clear, I'll move to the next slide. Okay, good. Now, marginal rate of substitution. Okay, MRS, marginal rate of substitution. The amount of commodity Y that a consumer is willing to give up. I said earlier, they substitute each other. They substitute for each other. If you want to consume more of X, you have to consume less of Y. Why? Because your income is limited. Okay, whatever limited income you have to allocate it. You have to distribute it to X and Y. So the amount of commodity Y that the consumer is willing to give up in order to gain one additional unit of commodity X, is called as marginal rate of substitution and still remain on the same indifference curve. I'll go back to the previous slide. Okay, not this one, the previous slide. Okay, here, when you move to this, from this point to the other point, you are purchasing more of X. When you purchase more of X, you have to purchase less of Y. Okay, you are purchasing less of Y. You are substituting X for Y, but you are remaining on the same indifference curve. The point might have changed, but it is on the same curve. Okay, that's what it says. Okay, so and still remain on the same indifference curve. How do you calculate that? MRS XY, X substituting for Y. So delta QY by delta QX. Change in quantity of Y consumed, purchased, divided by change in quantity of X consumed or X purchased. Always it will be having negative sign. It will be having negative sign. Generally, it will be having negative sign because when you use more of X, you have to use less of Y. So numerator becomes negative, denominator becomes positive. Negative by positive is negative. Okay. Slope of the indifference curve. Marginal rate of substitution is nothing but the slope of the indifference curve. So MRS, it represents the slope of the indifference curve. It is negative, but in our analysis, we ignore the sign. Do you remember when we talked about the price elasticity of demand, that sign was negative, but in our analysis, we ignore the sign. Very similarly, we ignore the sign here. But to find out the equilibrium, we need one more information. It is referred to as budget constraint line, or usually in short form, we call it as budget line. You know budget, the meaning of budget. Budget is the amount available with you to spend, or your income. How much income I have? Maybe I have 5,000 rupees every month. I get 25,000 rupees every month. That is my budget. So this line represents the budget line. Okay, line that shows all the different combinations of two commodities that a consumer can purchase. Okay, if my income is 5,000 rupees per month, how much of X I can purchase, how much of Y I can purchase with 5,000 rupees. So I can purchase different combinations. Okay, 10 kgs of Y, 5 kgs of X, 9 kgs of Y, 7 kgs of X. So different combinations. But the expenditure will be the same. Okay, the expenditure will be the same. So line that shows all different combinations of two commodities that a consumer can purchase subject to a given money income and prices of the two commodities. So this line depends on income of the consumer as well as the price of the commodity, because price it affects how much quantity you can purchase. Okay, so you can purchase this combination here, you can purchase this combination, your expenditure remains the same. Okay, your budget remains the same. Are you clear about? That's why it is called as budget line. Are you clear about this? Shall I go to the next slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, in one of the previous slides, we had seen the ratio of between quantity of Y, change in quantity of Y and change in quantity of X. We treated it as marginal rate of substitution. We called it as marginal rate of substitution, and it represents the slope of indifference curve. Similarly, the slope of the budget line is obtained by dividing the price of X by price of Y. So price ratio indicates the slope of budget line, and the price multiplied by quantity, expenditure on X, price of Y multiplied by quantity of Y, expenditure on Y. And if you add the two expenditures, it must be equal to income. Usually we represent, many times we represent income with M in economics. Okay, so where Px and Py, they are the prices of X and Y, Qx and Qy are the quantities of X and Y, M is the money income. Okay, M is the income. Now, in this graph, these are different budget lines, 1, 2, 3. Similar to indifference curves, what they indicate is as you move away from the origin, your budget goes on increasing. Okay, suppose 1, it represents your income is 5,000 rupees per month. 2, which is away from the origin, it represents your income is 15,000 rupees per month. And third one, budget line 3, your income is 30,000 rupees per month. So as you move away from the origin, your budget goes on increasing. Budget tells you what is your capacity, what is your ability, what you can do. Okay, the budget line tells you what is your ability, how much money you have to spend, what you can do. Okay, that is budget line. What the indifference curve indicates, what you want to do, how much of X you want to purchase, how much of Y you want to purchase. So your indifference curve tells you what you want to do, and your budget line tells you what you can do. Now, can you guess what could be the equilibrium point? Can you guess what could be the equilibrium point? Anyone? Can you imagine what could be the equilibrium point? Consumer satisfaction? Anyone? ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಲ್ವಾ? ಅಥವಾ ಮೊಬೈಲ್ ಆನ್ ಇಟ್ಟು ಎಲ್ಲ ನಿಮ್ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ?
ಇಲ್ಲ ಸರ್, ಕೇಳ್ತಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಸರ್.
ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ, ಸಂತೋಷ. I repeat, indifference curve tells what you want to do. Budget line tells what you can do. When you will be in equilibrium, when you will achieve equilibrium, what you can do will be equal to what you want to do. ನೀವು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಇದ್ದೀರಿ, ನಿಮಗೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡೋಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇದೆ, ಎರಡು ಒಂದೇ ಆದ್ರೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಸಂತೋಷ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. Did you get the point? If what you can do is equal to what you want to do, what you can do is equal to what you want to do, then you'll get all the satisfaction. This is what it says. Okay? The consumer is in equilibrium at the point where the budget line is tangent to the indifference curve. Budget line is tangent to the indifference curve, and the point of tangency, okay, the point of tangency tells you the point of consumer equilibrium. Quantity of X, quantity of Y, indifference curve, the budget line, the point of tangency where the budget line touches the indifference curve, it is the point of consumer equilibrium. Okay, so indifference curve indicates what the consumer is willing to do, and the budget line indicates what the consumer is able to do, capable of doing, at the point of consumer equilibrium, the slope of the indifference curve is equal to the slope of the price line, the point of tangency. So slope of the indifference curve is marginal rate of substitution. The slope of the budget line is the price ratio. At the point of tangency, the marginal rate of substitution is equal to price ratio. Of course, we ignore the sign of marginal rate of substitution. In one of the previous slides, while explaining the content there, I had mentioned it will be having a negative sign, but we ignore the sign. So MRS must be equal to PR. PR is the price ratio. At this point, the consumer will be in equilibrium. Okay. So I'll go to the previous one. This is what I wanted to tell you. Is this clear? Do you have any questions?
No, sir.
Is it clear? Okay. Now, an assignment, at least this will be of interest to you. Okay. The question paper will be mailed. I'll be mailing the question paper because I don't use WhatsApp. WhatsApp I don't use, so I'll mail the question paper. If the CR, Gavi Siddesh Patil, okay, if he mails me the email IDs of all the students of A section in a Word file, I'll mail the question paper to all simultaneously. It is on 1st July, right? On 1st
Yes,
July, I'll mail the question paper to all simultaneously. Otherwise, I'll mail the paper to CR and he has to share it to all. Couple of minutes before the exam starts, maybe 5 minutes before the exam starts, I'll mail the question paper to CR and he has to share it with all the batchmates. Or else, if I get the email IDs of all the students of A section, then I'll mail it to all simultaneously. And after the exam, scanned answer sheets, and I think I have given 3rd July as the last date for submission of assignments. So both scanned answer sheets and scanned assignments, they have to be mailed to me to this email ID. Okay, this is my email ID. If you want, you can note down. My full name is my email ID. PS SRIKANTHAMURTHY without any space, all small letters, okay, at gmail.com. You have to mail your answer sheets individually, yourself. You don't have to send it to CR and he compiles it and he collects them and sends it to me. No. Each one of you have to mail the scanned answer sheets as well as the assignments to me directly to this email ID. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Thank you and good luck. And before we wind up, I'll just take 1 minute or 2 minutes. Okay. So usually I do this. Is this visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So economics, meaning and other things I have covered. Approaches to economic analysis, microeconomics and macroeconomics. If I have not covered anything, please let me know. I have covered nature of economic theory, that is rationality, assumptions, and so on, and equilibrium, stable equilibrium, unstable equilibrium, I have covered. Basic concepts like goods and services, free goods, personal goods, necessities, comforts, I have covered. Desire, the meaning I have mentioned. Wants, necessities, and conventional necessaries, comforts, luxuries, I have covered. Cost, price, value, wealth, capital, income, welfare, I have covered. Then utility, meaning and other things I have covered. Negative utility, zero utility, marginal utility I have covered. Utility theory, diminishing marginal utility, consumer equilibrium, derivation of demand curve, equimarginal utility principle I have covered. Demand, meaning, schedule, and all those things I have covered. Elasticity of demand, cross elasticity, those things, income elasticity I have covered. Supply, meaning, and other things, and also the elasticity I have covered. Elasticity of supply covered. Then production, meaning, and other things, capital, labor, factors of production, land, labor, capital I have covered. Market structure, monopoly, duopoly, duopsony, those things I have covered. Distribution theory, national dividend, national income, those things I have covered. Pricing factors, concept of rent, wage, interest, profit, national income, different concepts like GNP, NNP, GDP, already covered. Population importance, Malthusian population theory, positive checks, preventive checks, and all those government programs I have covered. Money, barter system, and those things. Then the functions of money I have covered. Money supply, treasury bills, exchange bills, bonds, equities, general price index, consumer price index, wholesale price index I have covered. Inflation, different types of inflation and how to control inflation, and the meaning of deflation I have covered. Banking, its purpose, macrofinance and agriculture finance I have covered. Public finance, public revenue, public expenditure, all those duties, taxes, and such things I have covered. Economic system I have covered. Niti Aayog, capitalistic economy, socialistic economy, mixed economy I have covered. Agricultural economics, meaning, definition, characteristics I have covered. Then technical change, embodied technical change, disembodied, neutral technical, non-neutral covered. Agriculture planning and development, all those things, reduce population and other things, land reform measures, those things I have covered. Okay, ceiling on land holding and other things. Then agricultural labor, farm mechanization, agricultural labor, different types of labors, problems faced by laborers, and all the schemes, government schemes to help the laborers I've covered. Farm mechanization, what is the meaning, advantages, and the Yantradhara scheme, the custom hiring service I have covered. I hope I have covered everything, and these are the references. So I think I have done my duty, and now it is your thing. Okay,
Okay, sir.
all the best.
Thank you, sir.
We'll meet again on 1st July.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye, sir.
Record.